Greetings and good evening from Los Angeles Union Station. Today we are riding on Amtrak's Sunset Limited and Texas Eagle from Los Angeles to Austin in the comfort of a bedroom suite. Covering a distance of 1,505 miles over 3 days of travel, today's journey will be the longest on the channel to date. Yes, even surpassing our flight from Austin to Johannesburg. With stunning views of vast open deserts, this is one of the most scenic of all of Amtrak's long-distance trains, riding 33 hours across the southern United States, across 4 states, and 3 time zones. We got quite the journey ahead of us, so let's get moving. Our odyssey starts here at LA's beautiful Union Station. Opened on May 3rd, 1939, Union Station serves as the busiest Amtrak station in the western United States, serving almost 110,000 daily passengers. Most of these are commuters using Metrolink, however some still use Amtrak's intercity and long-distance trains. The interiors are absolutely stunning, encapsulating that golden era of rail travel in the US with high ceilings decorated with lots of incredible architecture. The station serves Metrolink, Amtrak's Pacific Surfliner, Southwest Chief, Coast Starlet, and of course, the Sunset Limited. Our train won't be departing until 7 o'clock tonight, so we got some time to pass. Luckily, LA has a Metropolitan Lounge where we can wait for our train's departure, so after grabbing our bags, we made our way over to the lounge. Unfortunately, the lounge can be quite hard to find as there is only one sign in the entire station for the Metropolitan Lounge. More signs would have really come in handy. The lounge can be accessible via this elevator here, or you can climb the stairs. We chose to take the elevator because we were schlepping quite a bit of luggage. Entering the lounge attendant gave me a souvenir for my first ever overnight train trip on Amtrak, a model Amtrak P42DC which can be put together via folding up these sheets of paper. The Metropolitan Lounge at LA's Union Station was rather small, but there weren't a whole lot of people here at the moment, so it didn't really matter. Los Angeles Union Station offers some decent amenities such as snacks and drinks which can be found at the bar over here. There is a coffee station where passengers in need of caffeine can grab a cup of coffee. There is also a trash can here where passengers can throw away waste after they're finished with their snack or drink. There are also posters on the wall here that feature what appear to be Amtrak's California Zephyr from Chicago to San Francisco, Amtrak's Adirondack from New York to Montreal, and the Southwest Chief from Chicago to Los Angeles, although none of the names are displayed on any of the posters. If young kids are getting bored, there is a small kids section where there are toys where kids can play with while waiting to board the train. With some time to kill before departure, let's take a look at our route across the southern United States. Following 7 p.m. departure from Union Station, we head east past Palm Springs and down towards Yuma, crossing into Arizona in the darkness. We reach Tucson at sunrise, crossing into New Mexico soon after breakfast. El Paso is our longest stop of the day, the stop taking place towards the mid-afternoon. We then reach Alpine at sunset before continuing on into the night, reaching San Antonio at 3 a.m. Our trains then split in two, with a couple of cars being transferred to Amtrak Texas Eagle number 22, continuing north to Austin, arriving downtown at 9:22 a.m. I hope you are ready for this epic odyssey because we are about to spend 33 hours and cover a distance of 1,505 miles, so you better settle in and get comfortable because we sure got a long trip ahead of us. As we waited for boarding, I decided to do some rail fanning, watching trains coming in and out of Union Station. First to catch on camera was an LA Metro train. I almost missed it, but an Amtrak Pacific Surfliner headed out of LA's Union Station beginning its journey to San Diego. The Pacific Surf Line runs between San Luis Obispo and San Diego, stopping in Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, and Oceanside, plus many others along the way. A Metrolink train was waiting for departure at LA's Union Station, headed by F-125 number 916. Next to catch on camera is another LA Metro train heading out of LA's Union Station. After a bit of rail fanning, the boarding announcement is made for Sunset Limited train number 2, so we soon pack up and make our way towards the tracks. Amtrak's Red Cap service will be taking us out to track 12B, where our train will be departing. Red Cap is a series of golf carts that take passengers from the lounge to the tracks. An LA Metro train makes its way out of Union Station, giving us something to look at while we wait to get moving towards our platform.
The northern parts near
With everyone now on board the golf cart, the staff soon begin driving us towards the tracks.
California Zephyr, I suppose.
Yes.
Making our way towards the tracks, we pass a few Metrolink trains which are waiting for departure from Union Station. Arriving at the platform, a set of superliners begin to back their way down the track. The Sunset Limited is now here. Our train consists of a baggage car, 2 sleeper cars, a sightseer lounge car, a traditional dining car, and 2 coach cars, headed by GE Genesis P42DCs number 194 and 168. This will be my first time ever riding overnight on a train, and I am really excited about this incredible experience. For our ride to Austin, we are assigned to the rearmost sleeper on today's train. For the first time ever, I boarded a sleeper train. Ascending the stairs, we can make our way up to the 2nd level where our room is located. A little ways down the corridor, we can find Room C, our home for the next 33 hours. Stepping inside, we can slide the door shut and settle in for the long trip ahead of us. These 2 mechanisms here are used to lock the door, with one mechanism locking into the wall with the other holding it down to keep it from accidentally flinging back up. However, you are unable to lock them from the outside. The curtain covers the window, allowing for some good privacy while you're in your room. On the other track, a Metrolink train was waiting to depart LA's Union Station. It seemed there were a lot of Metrolink trains that were waiting for departure at this time. Looking out the other side of the train, we can get a great view of the sunset over downtown Los Angeles. As good as this sunset is, it will eventually pale in comparison to the sunset that we will experience on day 2. Passing the time when waiting for your train to depart is very easy, as LA Union Station is almost never at rest, an LA Metro train pulling in as if to prove my point. As our departure time came and went, the conductors came over the PA announcement with some unfortunate news.
A little bit of a delay here because there is an issue down line with one of our switches. They've got a maintainer en route to go fix that switch, but they want us just to hang tight here in Los Angeles. So we thank you for your patience. We're estimating at least a half an hour delay. So please, thank you for your understanding, and we do apologize. But again, we're going to be at least sitting here for at least half an hour. And if I have any other information, if I get called or notified, I will make an announcement. Thank you.
Apparently, there is a switch problem further down the line outside of LA's Union Station, which could see us stopped from anywhere from half an hour to over an hour. I had expected delays, seeing as it's Amtrak, and Amtrak is known for being delayed. However, I was in no rush to get anywhere, so it wasn't a problem. As we awaited departure, the sky around LA soon turned dark. A Pacific Surfliner soon pulled in on the other track, giving us something to look at while we awaited our departure. It's clear that it had just arrived as passengers were just getting off.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? We've got a little information update for you. Apparently, the Union Pacific is having a problem with one of their switches, which means that they're going to have to redirect this train on a different route. Once again, this train will be redirected on a different route that my team is not qualified on. So what we're waiting for at this time is Union Pacific employees to show up so that they can maneuver us around the route that they're qualified on. And then once they get us back to where we need to be, we'll take over from there.
Apparently, the problems with the switch are a bit bigger than expected, which means that our train will have to be rerouted and we'll have to wait for Union Pacific employees. I wasn't going to let a few delays get in the way of my experience, and my dinner reservation was soon called, so off to the dining car I went. On my way to the dining car, I passed through the Sightseer lounge car, a place I would spend most of tomorrow where the scenery was most spectacular. There were large windows and tables, as well as swiveling armchairs where passengers could sit back and watch the scenery go by. After passing through the lounge car, we soon make it to the dining car. Dinner on Amtrak's well-known traditional dining menu is a full 3-course meal with appetizer, entree, and dessert of a couple different options. I decided to pass on the first course as it didn't really look like anything I'd be interested in. For a main, I decided to go with none other than Amtrak's signature flat-iron steak. On the other track, a Pacific Surfliner soon departs LA's Union Station, giving us something to look at while we wait for our dinner to be served. First to be served were our drinks, and I just went with a standard bottle of water, which isn't really like a sort of a restaurant drink, but it's what I went with. Served as an appetizer was a bread roll while we waited for our main course to arrive. The bread roll was tender and very tasty, making for a good way to start my first ever dining experience with Amtrak. About an hour after our scheduled departure time, we finally pull out of Union Station, beginning our 1,500-mile adventure out east. Exiting LA's Union Station, the skyline soon disappears behind us, with only the lights of the suburbs illuminating the night sky.
I always tell people to walk like a duck. As long as you do not cross your feet, you will not tip over.
The suburban lights grow dimmer and dimmer as our train heads out into the countryside and beyond.
So you guys have a good night.
Our main course is soon served, Amtrak's signature flat-iron steak. The steak was fantastic. It was juicy, tender, and the meat was well seasoned, making for a very fulfilling dinner. It was so good that it was so hard not to eat it super fast, and my parents kept reminding me to slow down when eating, but it was just so hard to help it. I decided to pass on the veggies as they've never really been my thing. I had heard a lot of great things about the steak on YouTube, saying it was one of the better options on Amtrak, and I totally now see why they consider it that. Now, dinner is a 3-course meal, which means that dessert will be offered tonight. Served is a chocolate toffee mousse, a white chocolate blueberry cheesecake, and an ultimate mare lemon cake. Being a chocolate lover, I just had to go with the chocolate toffee mousse. Our dessert is soon served, and I'm not sure what I was expecting, but we got an amazingly huge piece of cake and tasted amazing. It was super rich and maybe a little bit too rich for some people to handle. The cake itself was amazing, with the toffee adding some nice crunchiness to this dish, and the whipped cream and the chocolate icing adding some extra flavor to this already amazing dish. Definitely a great dessert choice and probably what I'll always be going for whenever I'm on Amtrak. It was so good that by the time I was finished eating it, there was nothing left. I completely cleaned the plate. This dinner experience has been really great. It started off with an amazing main course that was very much up there with some of the best steak restaurants that I've been to, followed by the dessert that surpasses some of the best restaurants. Definitely a 10 out of 10. Wrapping up dinner, our train makes its first stop in Pomona, California. The lights of the station shining in the darkness outside. Unfortunately, because it was night, it was a bit hard to get a good shot of the station, but this was the best I could do. Pomona is located just outside Los Angeles in the greater LA area and was named after the Roman goddess of fruitful bounty. We pulled out of Pomona, continuing east into the night. With my dinner now wrapped up, I headed back to my room in preparation for bed tonight. Soon after, our incredible sleeping attendant, Toya, came by to convert the couch into the bed for the night. The couch itself folds flat and a mattress is placed on top to make the bed, providing for a great place to hang out during the night. Climbing into bed, we find a very comfortable place to hang out and get some decent night's sleep. Not as comfy as a regular hotel bed, but it gets the job done. Plus, you can only fit so much space on a train. The upper bunk, however, is where I will be staying, because my mom will be staying on the lower bunk. The upper bunk can be accessible via this ladder here. It can be a bit hard to get up because the ceiling is a bit tight, but it's good enough. The upper bunk is a bit more cramped than the lower bunk, but it's good enough to get a decent night's sleep. 9:30.
As of right now, ladies and gentlemen, our Yuma stop, Yuma is at 12:33.
On the wall of the upper bunk is a small pocket where you can store things such as devices and other small things. There is also a small reading light here which can be controlled via this button next to it. And unlike my previous ride on Amtrak, there are actual air vents on the wall here, as opposed to in coach where there are no air vents. There is a safety strap which hooks into the ceiling. It can be tightened, however it's quite finicky to deal with, or so I've heard. Anyways, I didn't need to tighten it, as it was already tight enough to keep me safe. 10 p.m. soon approaches, we get situated, which marks the beginning of quiet time on Amtrak. Lasting from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. the next morning, passengers are required to keep conversations quiet, and if they have to make a phone call or talk to somebody, they move to the lounge car so that they don't disturb passengers who are trying to get a decent night's sleep, such as myself, and the crew also dim the cabin lights to make it easy for passengers to get a good night's sleep. Having gotten situated, we can turn out the lights for a good night's rest. We woke up the next morning as we were departing Tucson, Arizona, and would soon get some great views of the beautiful Sonoran Desert. The sun began to rise as we made our way out into the desert, and it was a beautiful sight to wake up to on day 2. It's not long after departing Tucson where we get a view of the highlight of the Sonoran Desert, the saguaro cactus. I've always loved the saguaro cactus, seeing as they stand tall and provide homes to a lot of cool creatures such as elf owls, gila woodpeckers, and many more. Unfortunately, I only got a brief view of the saguaro cactus before we left the Sonoran Desert, but still got some more spectacular scenic highlights to see. In the distance, a couple of snow-capped mountains protruded from the desert, a beautiful sight to see on day 2. The southwestern area of the United States is basically where mountains and desert meet each other, which is why it's my favorite kind of landscape. We'll get even more spectacular views when I ride the Southwest Chief in the coming years. Perhaps there's no better place on the Amtrak to enjoy these spectacular sights than in the Sightseer lounge car, which is placed in the middle of the train. The lounge car has comfortable seating as well as tables for passengers to sit and play games, and extra large windows that even wrap onto the ceiling for optimal viewing angles from any seat. Unfortunately, the lounge car has been cut from service on many other routes, mostly in the eastern United States, so I highly recommend riding the western ones which still have them. I've never seen scenery quite this spectacular in any of my travels in the past. It's a shame that not a lot of people ride Amtrak because it seems like they're missing out on such an experience. I hear a lot of people think of Amtrak as a slow and outdated way to travel, but I think that it's just an experience and that people are choosing to miss out on it just for speed. We soon passed a small herd of cows that happened to be grazing right next to the track as our train rolled by. Next on the agenda is breakfast. Amtrak's traditional dining menu offers 5 options: a continental breakfast, Amtrak's row of French toast, a 3-egg omelet, scrambled eggs, and a breakfast quesadilla. Of those 5 options, I went with the scrambled eggs. The spectacular scenery outside made it very easy to pass the time while we waited for our breakfast to be served. Just like with dinner last night, drinks are the first thing served. I once again went with water, which came in this nice Amtrak branded cup. Because I didn't order any alcoholic drinks because I don't drink alcoholic stuff, I didn't have to pay extra for any of my drinks. Our eggs are soon served and came with a croissant, some potatoes, and a couple sausages. I decided to pass on the croissant and the potatoes as the eggs and sausage were more than enough for me. The eggs were rich and very tasty. They were freshly cooked and very hot, which made for a very fulfilling breakfast, and it was definitely enough food for one person. Not quite as good as dinner from last night, but it was good enough for me to finish it. The sausages weren't quite as good, but they were satisfying. The flavor was just maybe a bit too strong. As breakfast on trains go, it definitely ranks as an 8 out of 10. As we dined, a freight train passed us on the other tracks. Good thing we didn't have to wait for this one to pass, as we were already behind schedule thanks to our switch problems last night. Only about 30% of Amtrak's network is owned by Amtrak, with the rest owned by different freight companies, which is why Amtrak often faces delays on many of its routes. With the morning events now concluded, we can take a tour of our wonderful bedroom suite. Amtrak's bedroom is the largest sleeping accommodation offered on board, but also the most expensive. It has a long couch which has enough space for 2 or more adults. However, in its nighttime configuration, it can only fit 2 people in its bunk. A bedroom suite is 2 bedrooms made into one by way of opening this door between them. This can provide a capacity of 4 to 6 people, or so I've heard. The couch can be reclined into a comfortable lounging position using this bar down here. There is a small closet here where passengers can store belongings, however I'm not sure how much it could fit in there. There are a few coat hooks where passengers can hang up their clothes, but with only 2 in the closet, there isn't much they can hang up. One thing that bedrooms offer that roomette and family bedrooms don't offer are ensuite bathrooms and showers. With family bedrooms and roomettes, passengers use shared bathrooms that are outside the actual room. It was a bit tricky closing the door, but with a bit of effort, I managed to close it. Overall, the bathroom was very clean. There wasn't a whole lot of space, which is expected for a train, but there was just enough. The shower head is detachable, which is useful for taller passengers. The black button on the wall is used to flush the toilet, as shown on the sign below it. There was also a small card here which was giving facts about Amtrak, as well as a poster featuring Amtrak's California Zephyr, which many people consider the most scenic Amtrak route. On the other side of the card was another scenic Amtrak route, the Coast Starlight. I plan on taking both the Coast Starlight and the California Zephyr in the future, so stay tuned for when I take them. Each bedroom has a small chair where passengers can sit down and enjoy the scenery as it rolls past. It has armrests where passengers can rest their arms, and overall it was a very comfortable chair. I find the most comfortable way to hang out in the chair is to rest your feet on the bed in front of you. There are water bottles in each room which come in handy when trying to stay hydrated. If you run out, all you have to do is ask the sleeping attendant for more. There is a tray table that folds up and out from the wall. I never used it throughout the journey, so I'm not sure how much use it would be, but overall it seemed pretty functional. There are some smaller tables that fold out from the main table to provide for extra space. Unfolding them, I noticed that there was what appeared to be a chessboard, which I guess was for passengers who brought their own chess pieces. Not sure how often this would happen, but I guess it happens. On the right side of the wall are the attendant call button and master light controls. They're not exactly buttons, they're just things that you touch to activate them, but they work just as well. On the left is an outlet and the volume controls for the PA announcements and music. At first I thought this was the only outlet for the entire room, like with a roomette and a family bedroom. However, it turned out that there were 2 other outlets by the sink. The outlets are 3-pronged US-style plugs that contain 120 volts. Overall, the sink was quite functional. The water turned off automatically so as not to waste water, and the soap was full. There is also a drain where the water can drain out just like with any sink. I'm not sure where it drains out, but I hope it doesn't drain out onto the tracks. On the bottom of this small rack was a light which could be controlled via this white button right next to it. The rack that the light was attached to provides a great place to store the rest of your clothes if the closet runs out. Again, the closet is rather small, so this comes in handy. The bedroom is a great place for more than one passenger to hang out. However, I'm not sure it would be worth it for a solo traveler, seeing as it's very expensive, with the bedroom suite that I booked costing like $3,000. Crossing the desert, our train makes a tight curve, giving us a great look at the P-42DCs hauling the Sunset Limited. As stated when departing Los Angeles, we're in the last car on the train, which means we can head to the rear and get some amazing views of the tracks behind us. Looking out the back, we can get a great sense of speed as our train chugs across the desert. If you can, I highly recommend moving to the back to get optimal views like this one. The tracks get a little windy, our train weaving around the curves. They're not as windy as I've experienced on roads, which can get so windy that I can easily get carsick. I decided to head back to the lounge car and stay there until lunch while enjoying these spectacular views. The vast orange desert stretches out as far as the eye can see, and it seems as if it never ends. Again, no better place to enjoy this incredible sight than the lounge car. Our train soon sounds its Nathan K5LA horn, a great thing to hear when you're on a train. While we're cruising, let's take a peek at the lower level of the lounge car. On the lower level of the lounge is a cafe where passengers can grab a snack. However, again, this is not complimentary to sleeper passengers, so if you want a snack from the lounge car, you'll have to pay extra. Other than that, it's virtually the same, with the same table layout as upstairs. Continuing across New Mexico, we soon start to see some spectacular desert rock formations, another scenic highlight of the Sunset Limited. I find it hard for me to encapsulate all this spectacular scenery, so that's why I'm going to request that we take a moment to truly enjoy these spectacular desert views.
You want to get in front?
No, because I'm gonna stop along the way. I see families here.
This is some spectacular scenery.
You guys are back there, right? Yeah, we are in.
We soon lose the vegetation we once had. The desert soon becomes pretty much just a bare bed of sand. This sand very much resembled the salt pans I had experienced in Africa. If you want to see what I mean, check out my video about our expedition in Africa when we searched for the black rhino, the Nile monitor lizard, the brown hyena, and the leopard. Links will be in the top right or in the description below. Wow, that is like spectacular. Sandy desert. The hills protruded in the distance and were so far away they were so hard to see across the vast desert.
Yeah, it's cool. I like this car. It's my favorite.
We soon pass a couple of freight cars which appeared to be sitting dormant in the middle of nowhere, perhaps waiting for some locomotives to pick them up. Across the desert, a couple of snow-capped mountains protruded in the distance. As pretty as this route may be, I can't say for sure because I've never ridden it, but I think the better of the two for seeing scenery like this would be the Southwest Chief, but I'll have to wait and see to see if that's true. We soon passed what appeared to be a freight yard, freight trains preparing to get moving.
I think that's a little too close for her.
Our train soon makes a brief stop in the rural town of Lordsburg, New Mexico. Lordsburg is only home to about 2,200 people. The station here isn't really much of a station at all, pretty much just a couple of concrete platforms, but beyond that there's very little else. We soon depart Lordsburg, continuing eastbound across the desert.
It'll be another quick one, just like this one. Then we can make people come up.
We once again head back out into the desert with not a single house in sight. As the Sunset Limited heads through New Mexico, it's pretty much nothing but desert, with the only two stops being in Lordsburg and Deming. If possible, I recommend everyone make an attempt to take this ride because people who are flying from LA to Austin will miss all this spectacular scenery. I missed all of this when I flew westward from Austin to Los Angeles because it was at night. I had nothing to see but night sky, which is why I got extremely bored. On this train, I was hardly bored at all because of all these spectacular sights, plus the comfort of the sightseer lounge and the excellent food on this train. This is a much better experience than any airline can offer. I find it kind of fun, and apparently a lot of rail fans do, to get shots of this track beside us when we're on double track. It helps get a sense of speed, in my opinion. The conductor soon announced that we were nearing our next stop in Deming, New Mexico. After the PA announcement was made, we made our next stop in Deming, New Mexico, another rural town. Much like in Lordsburg, there really isn't much at the station, pretty much just a small hut and a couple of concrete platforms. The station was also some way back from the tracks, as shown from these passengers having to walk to the actual station. With these couple passengers now off the train and at their final destination, our train carries on. For quite a bit of the route, we were running parallel to a highway. I didn't know what highway that was, but let me know in the comments down below. I wondered what it was like for those people in the cars to see our train passing by. A beneficial thing about the lounge car is that there are outlets by each seat where passengers can charge their devices. This came in handy as my phone was starting to run low on charge and I still had plenty more to film. For much of the journey, it's pretty much been nothing but flat, open desert. However, this desert was extremely beautiful, so even though it didn't change much, I was never bored. If you're looking more for routes that diverge in scenery, the ones I recommend are the Coast Starlight, the California Zephyr, and the Southwest Chief. I plan on taking the Southwest Chief, which is my #1 favorite Amtrak route, sometime next year. All of these routes are high priorities, so let me know which one is your favorite in the comments down below. Crossing the vast open desert, we soon pass a tall hill protruding above the flat ground. Let me know if you know more about this, again, in the comments down below. Lunchtime came as we were approaching our next stop in El Paso. I was getting hungry, so I headed to the dining car, which was the next car up from the Sightseer Lounge. Offered on Amtrak's traditional dining menu are a mixed green salad, a Monte Cristo grilled sandwich, a natural Angus cheeseburger, a sweet earth plant-based awesome burger, a loaded baked potato with chili, and a savory chili bowl. I went with the Angus cheeseburger, a highly recommended option on Amtrak. Unfortunately, Amtrak doesn't serve french fries on its menu, as all its meals come served with kettle chips, as it is quite dangerous to cook french fries on a fast-moving train, as oil could splatter around everywhere. The Angus burger was awesome. It was quite tender, with the beef adding a good flavor, and the cheese flavor wasn't too strong. Overall, a fantastic lunch. Despite not serving french fries, the kettle chips were a very fantastic replacement and were quite crunchy and satisfying. For lunch dessert, Amtrak either offers a brownie or a butter cake, and I went with the brownie. The brownie was awesome. It was super rich with massive chocolate chunks throughout, plus a drop of whipped cream and some sauces sprinkled on top. For the chocolate lovers, I highly recommend the brownie, but if you're more of a vanilla guy, then the butter cake is the one for you. Definitely a 9 out of 10 lunch. Wrapping up lunch, the crew announced that our train was going to be stopping at a freight yard outside of El Paso to do an engine inspection, as we weren't allowed to do it in the actual station. Heading back to my room, a freight train heads past our train on the other track, giving us something to look at while we await to get moving again. Engine inspection complete, we soon get moving again, making our way into El Paso. I had missed our stop in Tucson, Arizona this morning because I had slept through it, so El Paso will be the first time I'll be able to get off the train. This is very much the scenery that I see whenever I drive to Taos, New Mexico from my home in Austin, only it's an entirely different experience to see it by train. Down in the valley, El Paso soon begins to come into view. El Paso doesn't really have much of a skyline, as all of the buildings are not super tall, but you can still see them across the desert here. The tracks into El Paso are rather windy, which means we can get some great looks at the P-42s. I'll be able to get better looks once we reach the station. This would be my first time setting foot in El Paso. There's no video on this, but I once drove all the way from Austin to Idlewild, California, and I had intended to spend the night in El Paso, but heat restrictions prevented me, which is why this is my first time. On approach, we made a Union Pacific freight train heading westward on the other tracks. Fortunately, because there were 2 tracks, we didn't have to stop, which meant that we weren't delayed any further into the station.
If you have
Getting
checked
good
baggage,
looks at your locomotives gives
once
you a
the
great
train stops,
sense
we're
of the
gonna be working on
locomotive's
getting those
power
back
and
onto you as
speed.
soon as possible. Just make your way to the
When the
front
tracks
of
get
depot
windy, I
and
kind of have to
baggage
race from one end of the car to the other to get good
takes
looks.
about 5-10 minutes. Once again, folks, we'll be El Paso, Texas, here in just under 15 minutes. Thank you.
Making our way into El Paso, we get very close to the border between the USA and Mexico. Literally, the border is just on the other side of this fence here. Now that's a cool thing to see when you're traveling on Amtrak. As we got closer and closer to the station, I headed downstairs to get ready to disembark for the smoke stop. Downstairs are a couple luggage racks where passengers can store luggage, however there's not a whole lot of space, so they fill up fast. We soon crossed the Rio Grande River, another scenic highlight of the Sunset Limited, which means that we are now in the final state of our journey, Texas. Because Texas is so big, we'll be in it for the rest of the journey. Approaching the station, our train soon begins to slow down. Our train now halted. We can hop off for the first of 2 smoke stops on our journey today. Stepping off the train, we can admire the Sunset Limited in all her glory. Our giant superliners look amazing with their polished silver sides looking amazing in the afternoon sunlight. While we're stopped, we can head to the front to take a look at our locomotives. Taking charge of Sunset Limited number 2 are GE Genesis P42DCs number 194 and 168. These locomotives, despite their age, look beautiful. Their cab design just gives each locomotive an aggressive look. Plus, their streamlined noses make them so fit for long-distance efficiency. I will never not enjoy looking at P42s, as they have always been my favorite locomotive and probably always will be my favorite locomotive. Just like with the rest of the fleet, 194 wears the battle scars of 2 decades of service. What these locomotives really deserve is a major overhaul, but unfortunately Amtrak is opting to retire them and replace them with the new Siemens ALC 42s, locomotives I have never been a big fan of. Locomotive 168 seems to be in slightly better condition, however I noticed that there was tumbleweed stuck on the front of it. I don't know how it got in there, perhaps maybe it tumbled onto the track, but it is what it is. Our baggage car just behind the locomotives is a Viewliner 2 built by company CAF. I miss the Heritage Fleet cars which were used before the Viewliners. I am much more of a fan of them, but the Viewliner 2s still look good. I headed back to the rear of the train to get the best shot I could of the Sunset Limited. At the rear of the train was the sleeper car I was staying in for the journey to Austin. Looking down the train, ahead of my sleeper were 2 coaches, a sightseer lounge, a dining car, and yet another sleeper. The sleeper car sandwich is the result of the Sunset Limited actually being 2 trains, not 1. From Los Angeles to San Antonio, the Sunset Limited runs as one solid train, train number 2. In San Antonio, Texas, the train splits in half, with much of the train continuing east to New Orleans as Train 2, with a couple of cars, including my sleeper, continuing north to Chicago as Texas Eagle Train 22. On its way to Chicago, train 22 will stop in Austin, which is where I will be getting off. It was also at this stop in El Paso where I met a fellow passenger, where she and I traded stories of rail travel on Amtrak. If you're watching this, it was a pleasure to meet you and I hope you're having a good time. The conductor calls us back on board and we step back inside to continue the journey. Heading out of El Paso, we are plunged into darkness as we make our way through some tunnel. Leaving the tunnel, we soon begin making our way out of El Paso. Heading back out into the countryside, we soon pass a couple freight equipment. We soon leave El Paso in the dust behind us as we make our way back out into the desert. I can't believe that we've covered Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas all today. It just makes the time fly by. In the distance, I saw what appeared to be a couple dust devils. This seems to be happening commonly during the dry season, as it is quite dry and the plants often turn to dust, which can lead to dust devils, which are basically a mini tornado of dust. The thing about the Sunset Limit is that you get small patches of farmland, but then it's pretty much just vast open desert with no signs of human activity anywhere. I soon headed back to the lounge car to keep enjoying these splendid sights. The lounge car was quite a bit more crowded than it was before El Paso because quite a lot of people had gotten on in El Paso. The sun soon began to approach the horizon, a sign of good things to come later in the evening.
Me too.
The desert stretches out across the vast landscape as far as the eye can see, hills and mountains protruding in the distance. Cruising across, my parents requested that I played a game of Yahtzee. I was rather reluctant to do it, but I decided to join them as the splendid sights rolled by. Our train soon runs parallel to a small road that very much resembled Route 66, however that route would be further north, so it definitely wasn't. Up in the sky, I saw what appeared to be either a blimp or a balloon. I'm not sure what it was about, but again, let me know in the comments down below. The landscape soon became very familiar as I actually have driven through a landscape like this when I've driven between Austin and Marfa. I don't usually video my road trips as it's pretty much just my own car, but if there's requests to do it, I will gladly do so. We soon begin to enter slightly more urban areas as we make our way towards our next stop. On approach into our next stop, we soon make our way past Marfa, and as we did, we passed right by the Thunderbird Hotel. This is the hotel I always stayed in whenever we went to Marfa, as I've always found a slight romance with it. I always would stay in that one whenever we were driving to Taos, because sometimes we would stay the night in Marfa. Never thought I'd actually see Marfa from the train, but this definitely looks like the stuff that I've seen whenever I've went to Marfa. After Marfa, we once again head back out into the open prairies. The tracks start to get windy again, giving me more shots of our locomotives powering away. The terrain once again starts to get more mountainous as we made our way towards our next stop. It seems that the Sunset Limited seems to go from flat to mountainous and then flat to mountainous over and over again. Well, it's not really changing much in scenery on day 2, it's still very scenic. The sun soon began to set over the horizon as we made our way towards our next stop, giving us a great thing to watch. The terrain once again soon flattened out as we headed east. Locomotives. Alpine is our next stop and is the second of 2 smoke stops on our journey. The station here in Alpine is rather small, with pretty much just one long platform able to span the full length of the train. While out on the platform, we get the continuation of that beautiful sunset. I always enjoy a good sunset and always have, but never have they been this good than from a train. This isn't nearly as long a stop as El Paso, and the conductor soon usher us back on board. Departing Alpine, we get the golden hour views of the sunset over the desert. I've experienced many sunsets over the years, but I'm not sure any have been quite as spectacular as this one. I headed back to the rear of the train in an attempt to get the best shots of the sun setting behind us. With views of the sunset this good, it truly deserves to be called the Sunset Limited. Why else would it be called that? It was really great the way the tracks winded away behind us as the sun set, illuminating the steel rails. Dinner time came about a half hour after Alpine. Making our way over to the dining car, we find the table with the menu laid out for us. The rest of the menu seemed like pretty decent options, but I couldn't help going back to the signature flat iron steak with a chocolate toffee mousse for dessert. As we wait for dinner to be served, we get the conclusion of that incredible sunset, a ripple of light shining over the horizon. Just like with dinner from last night, our drinks are served first, and I once again went with the water bottle. Once again, a bread roll is served as an appetizer, and it was once again delicious. The steak is soon served, and it once again comes served with a couple beans and carrots. I'm glad I went with the steak again, as it was fantastic, even a second time around. The steak was tender and juicy, making for a very fulfilling dinner. The meat was well seasoned, and the juiciness and tenderness just made it taste delicious. Definitely the best option on the menu. The chocolate toffee mousse is soon served, and it was once again incredible. The combination of chocolate mousse, chocolate icing, toffee, whipped cream, and sauces just made for an amazing dessert. The toffee added a nice crunch to this already amazing dish, but by far the tastiest thing was the chocolate icing and the chocolate mousse itself. The whipped cream also added a nice taste to this already incredible dish. Dinner tonight again ranks as a 10 out of 10. After finishing up dinner, we soon made our way back to the bedroom, our bed still made up from the night before. I soon began climbing my way up to the upper bunk and prepared for a good night's rest. Having gotten situated, we can turn out the lights for our second night aboard the train. The sun hasn't even risen when we awake on day 3. It's a little before 7 a.m. here in San Antonio, and the Sunset Limited has now dropped us off and is now long on its way to New Orleans. Our train is now a completely different train. Usually this is where the Texas Eagle terminates, however when the Sunset Limited runs, it connects with the train and continues all the way to Los Angeles. The Sunset Limited has taken both the lounge car and the dining car with it, which means there is no traditional dining for the rest of our journey to Austin. Right at 7 a.m., our train pulls out of San Antonio, beginning the last leg of our journey. Because there's no direct transfer on the track up to Chicago, we have to back out of the station before proceeding forwards, which is why we are heading backwards right now. These were the best shots I could get of San Antonio. They weren't super good because it was still dark outside, but they were good enough. At least there were some lights to illuminate our view. We soon reach the transfer track, and after being stopped for a little bit, we can proceed north on our way to Austin.
There is no smoking of any kind whatsoever on this train.
Sunrise soon begins as we make our way out of San Antonio, a rim of light soon appearing over the horizon. Making our way out of the city, we get a brief look at the lights of San Antonio as they grow dim behind us. By the time the sun makes its way above the horizon and the sky turns to bright blue, we are met with a very cloudy day. For the rest of the way to Austin, it will be pretty much nothing but farmland and trees. This is okay to look at, but nowhere near as scenic as the scenery before. I decided to take advantage of the breakfast served this morning before we arrived in Austin, so I made my way over to the dining car. Because the Sunset Limited had taken the traditional dining car to New Orleans, we'd be served flexible dining for this last meal on the train. Flexible dining was introduced in 2019 as a replacement for the traditional dining on long-distance Amtrak trains whose trips take 32 hours or less. Offered on the flexible dining menu are a selection of microwavable meals instead of fresh cooked ones. Also, there is no 3-course meal for dinner. Dinner is just single course like the other meals are. Offered for breakfast are a continental breakfast, buttermilk pancakes, or a 3-egg omelet. Pancakes seemed like the ones I would like the most, so I ordered those. As we waited for breakfast, it started to get rather foggy outside, the clouds completely blocking out the sun. Just like with the previous meals, drinks are served first, and I again went with water. Note that with flexible dining, alcoholic drinks are always complimentary as opposed to the traditional dining where only one is complimentary. Pancakes are soon served in a small Amtrak branded box. Opening the package, we are actually met with a pretty pleasant breakfast. Despite being a microwavable meal, the pancakes were actually pretty sweet and tasty. They were quite rich, which is expected for pancakes, and maybe a little too rich to completely finish, but with the maple syrup, they made for a fulfilling breakfast. Despite being reheated in the microwave, the pork sausage was actually quite juicy and tender, making for a pretty good side dish. Though it's definitely not as good as the traditional dining meals I had had earlier in the journey, it's still satisfying, and I definitely give this meal a 6 out of 10. Definitely not the best I've had, but it definitely could have been worse. On my way back to my sleeper, I noticed that one of the roomettes was unoccupied, so let's check out Amtrak's more affordable sleeping accommodation. The roomette is considerably less spacious than a bedroom. There is enough space for one adult, however things definitely can get quite cramped with more than one. Instead of one long couch, there are 2 seats facing each other that fold into 2 bunks with enough space for 2 adults. The upper bunk holds the bedding for the bottom bunk and the blanket for both passengers and can be folded down from the upper corner of the seat. Instead of a ladder, these stairs are used to access the upper bunk. The roomette isn't anywhere near as spacious as a bedroom or a family bedroom, however it's much more affordable, only costing about $500 as opposed to my bedroom suite, which costed $1,500 per room, which added up to $3,000 for the suite itself. As we made our way towards our final destination of Austin, Texas, our train made a very brief stop in San Marcos. There really is pretty much just a platform and an awning shelter, but beyond that, there's little else. Departing San Marcos, we soon make our final leg towards Austin. Departing San Marcos, we passed a couple of old streamlined coaches that were in former Amtrak paint schemes. Amtrak had inherited them from older streamlined railroads when it took over in 1971 before it got the new superliners. Town after town rolled by as we made our way through central Texas towards our destination. I can't tell you how much of an experience this has been. I just can't believe that I have now ridden overnight on a train. This has been a long time want, and I can't believe that this dream has finally come true. As our train was approaching Austin, we made our way downstairs in preparation to disembark into our destination. Before arrival, here are a few closing thoughts on our journey. Was the $3,000 I paid for this bedroom suite worth it? Yes, it was indeed. The scenery was just so spectacular, and the food was so good, and it was a relaxing and entertaining way to end off what had been an intense year of school. The only problem was the flexible dining I had for breakfast on this last day, but other than that, it was just amazing. The lounge was a great place to hang out, and it was overall the best travel experience I've had in this country. A full 33 hours after having left Los Angeles, our train arrives in Austin, Texas. With our train now at a halt, we can step off for the last time. In the next video, I'll be back in Florida to explore the Everglades on a boat tour. It was quite a cool experience seeing all the wildlife in the swamp, and I can't wait to share it with you. If you enjoyed my first ever overnight ride on a train, I suggest you like and subscribe. There are many more overnight train trips coming up in the future, so stick around so you don't miss them. If you want to know what our next overnight train trip will be, once I figure it out, I will notify you about when it will happen and what it will be on. Anyways, that concludes today's video. I hope you enjoyed the ride, and I will see you all next time. Take care.